Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. Well, the Warhammer Day is quickly coming upon us, and we had some Sunday preview articles written up here on Warhammer Week, on Warhammer community page, and a few other sweet little new releases that should be coming soon as well. And yeah, we're going to go through them, have a little look. This week's been a pretty crazy week for me. Just a little side note for channel news, I guess. My other computer crashed, and I lost like nearly a year's worth of work. I'm a sculptor. The header that you see when this video starts, Blight of Gods, is my brand. And yeah, it's been a pretty crazy week. I managed to back up a lot of stuff, but yeah, I've kind of lost quite a bit. So it's going to take a while to get back to where I was, which is kind of a shame. I was planning to release some new STL files before the end of the year, but that looks like that's not going to happen, or at least the ones that I had prepared, and some painting tutorials for that as well, which was already done, which is a real shame. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see a photo of some of those products that I was going to release. But, you know, they will eventually come back. I'm going to sit down and redo the work, which is crazy, but, you know, it needs to be done, right? You know, and then there's all this sort of world building stuff, maps and so on, and names of cities and all that kind of stuff that go with the Blight of Gods universe. But yeah, just a little side note for anyone that's interested, in the down there's a link. You can click on it and have a look at all of the characters that I sculpted and for that particular world. But otherwise, we'll get into this. So luckily, I've got a computer that is working and recording, so hopefully this is all working and it's on YouTube and you're listening to it. So I guess we'll get started. So Sunday preview, celebrate Warhammer Day with all these magnificent miniatures. Yeah, so next Saturday is Warhammer Day, a massive celebration of everything Warhammer. You can participate in lots of ways by painting up your favorite miniatures, playing Warhammer with your pals, turning into a massive online preview, yep, and even getting your hands on some exclusive event miniatures, yep. So we've seen some of this stuff. So the event miniatures have already been shown, and they've got a variant here that I'm going to have a look at, which again, I've extolled the virtues of the vampire that was shown. It's a really great departure from, and also harkening back to earlier vampire styles that they used to do. And I think that it's great that this one is here, namely a Necrarch vampire, which is the more, I guess, wizard or magic focused vampire. And you can see a bit of inspiration there, which is really great to see. We'll have a look at that in a second. So let's come down and see what they've got. So if we come down here, yep, we've seen this one before. This is your, you know, your classic lieutenant, another one to add to the pile, which is great if that's what you want. This one's only available online as far as I know. So you go to the website and order it, but this vampire here will be in the stores. So you'll be able to go pick it up. And what a great little variant. I love this, the little dragon. It's a really nice, I think it's asleep. That's just adorable. So, you know, it's a really nice little quirky character note for this vampire. You know, they've been really hitting it out of the park with some of these individual models, these character models for both the sub games and the Black Templar release. I talked about that. If you haven't seen the one that's on the John Blanche inspired model, I suggest you go listen to that, because I guess I feel like that's I don't know whether it's an underrated model or whether, because I don't hear many people talking about it, but it's a real historic moment for Games Workshop to produce a model like that. They don't often really take the inspiration, like the artwork from one of their artists, and actually replicate it faithfully. They usually, you have to, obviously the design team is going under particular design rules and the aesthetic, especially for Space Marines, and you're going to be conforming to those shapes. You're not going to be able to break away unless there's some kind of design mandate to do that, but otherwise you're going to be following a guide or some sort of design Bible, right? So that happens in all entertainment industries and so on. And to allow you know, a Space Marine to be made in that way. If you have a look at the forms of that Space Marine, it's very different. The chest is much more bold. The shoulder pads are different. It's harkening back to that classic flavor of John Blanche. And yeah, it's a real great thing that's being released, whether you like it or hate it. And yeah, you should definitely go and have a look. If you don't look at my video, that's fine. Just go onto the community page and take another look at it, because I can't actually remember another model where they've actually gone and tried to recreate what the artist captured in their images. It's very rare that happens. And I guess because John Blanche, his art is sort of not in the usual vein or style of modern illustration for Warhammer, and maybe the other artists do kind of conform to that, so there's not as many unusual or different takes on the universe and on all of their universes, whether it's AOS or 40k. But yeah, it is a really cool model, and I think everyone should really pay attention, and hopefully, even if you don't collect it, to have one in your collection, because it'll tell them that yes, we like this kind of thing. Yes, we want you to explore new ideas and new design aesthetics for even some of your classic and, I guess, money-making lines like Space Marines. And the more we do that type of thing, the more they see that this is a viable choice, and they'll do more of them. And so eventually you might get some Xeno inspired, what about some John Blanche Xeno stuff? He drew and painted many different characters from all the different races. So you might see something like that. Like, I'd love to see a Mechanicus inspired, sculpt from his work, because his work is all, crazy, it's chaotic. And to have a multi-limbed kind of Magus or something like that, or whatever, tech priest from Mars or something with all of that extra, I guess, grimdark aesthetic added to it would be really interesting. So yeah, but anyway, I won't go on too long about that, but this is really, really lovely. I like they've done a variant. That's really unusual as well, and they should be, obviously, support that, because that's good. We get more choices, more conversion possibilities. That's always good. So I've already talked about this more, so I won't go on about it, but that's just a cool thing to have a little dragon there. So all good. I'm a big fan of pet classes, so great. Then we've got obviously the kill team. They've got the Tau and the sisters coming, and we've already seen some of this. So, that's really cool. We've got like the two squads here. I'm sure everyone's already seen this already. And I think that's great. I don't know if I've discussed this before, but one of the really big draws for, I guess, AOS generally is that, they've got Warcry and Underworlds kind of supporting them in terms of, they get a lot of unique characters and unique individual characters, and 40k kind of doesn't get that. You got Necromunda, which is great, and they've got some great models, but they can't often be taken across into 40k as readily. And I feel like with Kill Team they can do a sort of an Underworlds thing where they can really do some interesting warbands that are very different and give you some really great individual models that you can then bring in, either use rules that they come with or as conversion possibilities for your own characters. And I think that's something that 40k kind of lacks a little bit, and I think that would be a great addition. I can see a really great Inquisitorial warband coming for Kill Team. It's all about operatives. You could have Inquisitors and all of that sort of thing, Eisenhorn stuff, everything that surrounds that world, that side of the 40k universe could be explored in a game like Kill Team, regardless of whether you like the game or not or any of those things. Just the design possibilities and the sculpting possibilities that the team can do to explore new ideas, and I think that's really the power. And as I've said before, I think that's where Games Workshop really does shine, is doing these smaller game systems. I think that's where they actually break out of the sort of the structure of the big games, and they just kind of muck around with ideas and try to come up with new concepts. And some of those bleed across into the main games, but it's good to have them there, and it's good to have them around, even just for the models, regardless of gameplay. And if it is great, then that's even better, right? But you need that, I think, because otherwise the main games can get a little bit stale, especially when you look at like some of the ranges have been scaled down, or a lot of the older models been moved out, and so you have smaller selections of models to draw from. So having those little extra ones there definitely helps. So yeah, all good, all positive. And you've got your usual dice and everything else. We've got Titanicus stuff coming. Now, I've heard that this game's actually really cool. So I've never actually played it, but apparently it's a pretty decent, although apparently it has a lot of books attached to this, but the game itself is meant to be really cool. So if you're into that, definitely check it out. All the big titans and so on, they're all really cool. This all reminds me of Epic back in the day. Like Epic was a great game. I love that. It'd be great for them to bring that back. But anyway, all of this stuff is cool when you get on those scales where you can actually like see the big army, setting forth onto tabletop. It's great. 40k AOS is awesome, but when you get to, when it's on those smaller scales, you get to see the vastness of the armies and what they really are, because 40k in AOS is just a snapshot of a sector or a small position with, just an element of the army, not like the whole thing. So it's always cool when they support this. Again, another sub game that definitely should be supported and is fun. So, and I love all these transfers that come with it. Look at all the great little options that you could do here. There's so many cool new ideas for like Space Marine chapters, Chaos chapters, or Chaos Legion, sorry. All kinds of interesting things you could use here from these transfers for sure. And then, Imperialis, I haven't played this either, but I don't actually know whether this is good or bad in the game, but I love that they do it. I like that they have all of these, other options for people, because, that's great, right? That's what you want, especially with a big company like Games Workshop. And then we've got some new stands here, miniature holders. That's all cool. Yeah, that's great. And some, looks like, for spraying and so on. So that's all really cool. I don't really need to look at that. And this is cool. I hadn't seen this before. So I think this came out, or they previewed this a few weeks ago. So yeah, again, I'm really liking the direction they're going for Heresy. I won't spend too long on this one, but the rumor is that there are plastics coming, and that they're, I'm hoping that that's a Mark 6 plastic kit. I'd love some Beaky Boys, my dream has always been to like do a whole Dark Angels army with the beaks, and do it sort of classic, I guess, second, third edition kind of aesthetic, I suppose. That the green with the probably third company with the little red stripe and so on, but do all the beaks, and put some of the Rogue Trader elements in, like the stripes down the front of the beaked helm and so on, and all that old school. So bring a bit of Rogue Trader in and making it really cool. So I'd love them to do all that, because that'd be a nice sort of fusion army. So not quite Heresy, but obviously a later time period, but using some of that Heresy and Rogue Trader elements into it, I think would be really, really cool. I've got a friend who's doing that for Blood Angels, like an all classic old school Blood Angel one, like painted. He's even doing the Goblin Green bases, like they're real classic style for. So that's really cool, and that's super inspiring, right? So anyway, this is good. Then we come down and we've got some Lord of the Rings. It's great this game still exists. I remember when this was released, I was working in the stores back for GW here in Australia, and I remember this being released when the first movies came out. It was a big explosion for Games Workshop. It brought a lot of people into the hobby, and it's great to see it still surviving and still a really good game. It was a great game system back then, and I'm sure it's a great game system now. I'd love to have a go of it, actually, because it plays very different. It's a different kind of game, and really refreshing if you're wanting a different type of game system. I always found Lord of the Rings pretty cool, and obviously Tolkien's great. Like all of his ideas and imagery that he's put into his world is all really awesome. So you can't really go wrong with it. So yeah, all really cool stuff. And then we've got some books. Yep, all good. And so that's all good there. So there's a lot coming, but that's not all that's coming. They're obviously going to be showing more. So what we'll do is we'll now jump over and have a look at some of the sub-game miniatures that they've previewed, and I'm assuming they're also going to be coming either for that day or very near into the future, because we've got a couple here. We've got one for Warcry, again a new model to, I guess, partner with the sort of spider chaos character that they already previewed, and then something for Blood Bowl as well. So let's take a look. So yeah, we've got grab your giant sword and leather belts. Warcry has a new Marauder in town. Yes, this is great. So again, they're exploring some different ideas. Classic Marauder, sort of Conan-ish kind of looking character, or something from that world. Robert E. Howard. I love it, right? Like I can't get enough of, chaos stuff is awesome. I love the war bands. I love all the idea of it, a chaos tainted landscape with these sort of marauding tribes living and worshipping these gods, and all the different names they have for them, and the different kind of, I guess, knowledge level that they have of that world and how they perceive those gods. It's all very different. It's not that classic case of like good and evil. They're living and creating little societies around this stuff. So it's a miraculous thing to see human beings live in a really, really, really grim place like that, but it's possible. And I guess that's what makes it kind of fun, because I think, you know, we could see that, you know, in our world, we have lots of, I guess, narratives about sort of post-apocalyptic kind of landscapes and how human beings would survive. And that would be our kind of fantasy world, you know, that we think about. And we probably would end up living in a lot of the ways that a lot of those post-apocalyptic kind of settings show, you know, at least in terms of the ruggedness of it and the brutality and so on. It would be there quite a lot, and you know, and that, I guess the chaos wastes and, you know, these types of I guess this is the center of the 8 points or whatever in AOS, but yeah, it just lets you in on that world, and I think we all love that stuff, you know, whether it be in our sort of post-apocalyptic sort of thing or here in Warhammer. And yeah, great model. He's you know, classic pose, and I love that the arms are separate here, so this is good for conversion. We can chop these off, we can do different things, we can add this to another model. I like when they do this, when they leave gaps, you know, that nice open space there is good. You've got a lot of different ways that you could approach this model, and for painting as well. You know, there's a lot of good things happening here. We're seeing a much stockier sort of anatomy happening here. This is a lot. You know, he's not missing leg day. This guy is getting in there. You know, we've got some really strong forms in the legs, which is you know, not always there, not always apparent. They're often thinner and slimmer. So we're getting I guess a bottom heavy kind of character here, which is usually unusual for this type of model. It's usually top heavy, and yeah, and a much leaner, barrel chested but much leaner upper body. The pectorals aren't coming forward. You know, it's a different style. In fact, you could even say here, so here's a little bit of anatomy for you. So, you know, when you see this, see how the pectoral, the muscle's actually cutting in, and there's no undercut here, and you got this sort of, I mean, that's what it looks like to me, this sort of slope. That means he was a lot bigger at one stage in his life. And in fact, the fact that, I don't know if the sculptor was intending this, but often when you get, you know, larger, you know, lads that have had a few too many burgers and maybe a few too many beers, you know, often when they train and if they go heavy on the weights, you'll often see this type of build where they're going to have quite strong legs, especially if they're taller, if they're a much bigger build guy to begin with. And what you'll see is because of all that extra skin, when they become really muscled, you often get a bit of undercut of extra skin that comes in under here, and it's actually quite accurate. If you ever, you know, if you're a sculptor and you're Google searching, you know, sort of like anatomy images and so on, because you're doing sculpting, you'll often see this in some of those kind of, you know, big bodybuilder type photos. You'll see this type of effect going on. It doesn't always, it depends on how old the character is, how old the person is. You know, the skin doesn't always recede back and become tight again. Sometimes it stays loose. So, you know, he might be in his like late 30s, early 40s, and you'll get that. So that's really interesting, and I like that that's in the sculpt. That's very unusual for these kind of classic, I guess, superhero type anatomies to actually show some imperfection in the way that the anatomy is, and more realism. So that's really cool. I think that's a really nice touch. I don't know if the sculptor meant it, but it's there. So here we go, we get the close-ups, all good. I mean, this is all classic stuff for Warhammer, nothing that unusual, and then we see them together, you know, and this character, just amazing, right? This is a really, really nice idea. I talked about this last time. I love the multi-arms. That's always a classic, well, it's not a classic, but an interesting sculpting choice. I enjoy doing it on my sculpts, but yeah, it's good to see, and it's a nice pose as well. So this is boding really well for Warcry. I'm really excited to see what they do with it, because it looks like they're opening up some fresh ideas for that world, or that part of the AOS world anyway. So let's jump across now and see the last bit. So we've got the BloodBowl here, and it's yeah, big and scaly, and we'll have a little look. So we've got a Croxigore here, and this is great because I know that as far as I know, the AOS Croxigores are like the super old ones, I think, or at least older, and they're not really loved that much as far as I know. It's a bit of a meme these days from what I can tell. So having a fresh one sculpted that's really cool like this, that, you know, you could easily throw into your Seraphim army and so on, is pretty cool. Not to say that this isn't great for BloodBowl, but, you know, often when you're dealing with big characters like this in BloodBowl, you don't always want those in your team. Often, you know, there are other builds or other ways you want to play it, and they're not always great for your list. So I don't know how great this will be for a Seraphim list in BloodBowl, but you know, it's a cool model and a nice pose. You know, you're getting some good I guess, good movement through the body. Again, this is what you call a contrapposto pose, or almost. So he's got a twist in the body. That's what that means. Normally you'll have a bit more of a slant on the hips, and the shoulders definitely are doing that slant, but normally the hips would be going in reverse. And I guess the base isn't big enough, but his legs should probably be further apart for this type of really overextended sort of raw and flex that he's doing. His legs would be a bit further apart, but I guess not for the base. You can't really do it. But yeah, really cool. I like that they're trying to dig in and find a new way to do Croxigores, because you know that there's a lot of third-party sculptors out there that do sort of these kind of lizard Croxigore proxies quite well, and it'd be interesting to see finally when Games Workshop like fully redo them to see what they do. But this looks like this is a direction they might go in, a more sort of barrel-chested, stocky build for the Croxigore, which I think is good. A more lumbering kind of you know, top heavy kind of build could be really cool for a Croxigore. So yeah, all in all, really cool. So we'll just see his stats. So he's okay, what's that, movement 6 or whatever, strength 5, yep, okay. So yeah, a pretty standard profile for a big guy. So probably you would have him in your team. Oh no, so he's got Bonehead, yep, Loner. Yeah, so you'll need the ones that it's been a while since I played Blood Bowl, but you'll need the ones that are able to help him, like assist him. You need that skill on them. So I think it's a guard, is it? So they can help him because he's a loner. And then he's got the other classic sort of abilities like Mighty Blow and so on. So yeah, he should be a pretty strong player. I'm not sure whether you would take... Is he a star player? I don't know if that says. Someone will have to tell me. But anyway, if you can take multiples, that's pretty good. So yeah, all in all, pretty fun for Blood Bowl. I'm really itching to get a game in. I've got an undead team, and it'll be. I can't wait to have a few games. Got a few mates that are ready for it, so that'll be good. But yeah, really cool. I'm interested to see how I guess their second edition of Blood Bowl is, because you know, their original edition was great, so I'm assuming the new one should be good too. I haven't heard any negative reviews of it, so it must be decent. So yeah, all in all, pretty fun. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry I've ran it on for a bit, but there's a lot to cover here, and I'm assuming in the coming days and over the week for the 30th, for the Warhammer Day, there'll be a lot more to preview. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I hope they preview some stuff on the Heresy, so we can see some of those plastic kits and hopefully some Mark 6 armor. That'll be amazing. But otherwise, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please hit the like button, subscribe button, because it really helps me out. But otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one.